Hello everyone, this is class 28 of Kerala PSC HSA English. Today, let's see the play Pygmalion, written by George Bernard Shaw. It is one of the most popular and beloved of Shawian plays. The title is taken from the myth of Pygmalion from Ovid's Metamorphoses. Pygmalion fell in love with one of his sculptures, which then came to life. The play was first presented on stage to the public in 1913. It tells about a phonetician who is considered as a king of social experiment. He attempts to make a lady out of an uneducated Cockney flower girl. The characters of this play are Eliza Doolittle, short form Lisa, or Mrs. Doolittle. So she is a Cockney flower girl. Then Alfred Doolittle, Eliza's father. Henry Higgins. He is a phonetician. He is an expert in phonetics. Then Frederick Ainsford Hill. He is an upper class young man. Miss Clara Ainsford Hill, Frederick's sister. Nepo Monk. He is Higgins' first pupil. Colonel Pickering. He is another phonetics expert. Shaw wrote the play in early 1912 and it was premiered at the Hofburg Theatre in Vienna on October 16, 1913. Okay, now let's get into the play. The action begins at 11:15 p.m. in a heavy summer rainstorm. The setting is London's Covent Garden. So at the beginning of the play, a group of people are gathered together under the portico of St. Paul's Church because of the heavy rain. So among the group, there are Mrs. Ainsford Hill and her daughter Clara. They are waiting for Freddie. Mrs. Ainsford Hill's son to return with a taxi or a cab. So he didn't get one. Now he again goes to search for a cab, and as he leaves, he collides with a young flower girl with a thick Cockney accent, and he ruins many of her flowers. So after that, the boy leaves. He again goes to look for a cab. So this flower girl is Eliza, and she wants Mrs. Ainsford Hill to pay for the damaged flowers. So Eliza calls her son's name, Freddie. Now this mother wonders how she came to know about her son's name. And after that, she discovers that this flower girl calls everyone either Freddie or Charlie. Then there came an elderly gentleman. And this flower girl notes his distinguished appearance and tries to persuade him to buy some flowers. So this gentleman is Colonel Pickering and he refuses to buy the flowers. But he gives the girl some money. So she got 3.5 pence from Colonel Pickering. At that time, some of them from the crowd warns the girl not to take the money because there is a man behind her taking notes of everything what she says. Then she thinks that Henry Higgins, who was taking these notes down, is a policeman who is going to arrest her for scamming people. Then she says that, I'm a good girl, I am. Then she realizes or learns that Higgins is an expert in phonetics and he was recording her speech for scientific ends. So it is his hobby to identify everyone's accent and to compare it with their place of birth. Then Higgins boasts that he could teach her to talk like a duchess in 3 months, and in such a way that she could even attend an ambassador's garden party. And at this time, the elder gentleman identifies, himself as Colonel Pickering, the author of a book on Sanskrit, who has come to meet the famous Henry Higgins, to whom he is now talking. So the two go off to discuss their mutual interest in phonetics. And there ends Act 1. Then in Act 2, we can see it is next morning at 11 a.m. and the setting is Higgins' laboratory. And we can see that the two men, Higgins and Colonel Pickering, are discussing on Higgins' experiments. And at that time, Mrs. Pierce, Higgins' housekeeper, comes and announces that the flower girl has come. So Higgins and Pickering receive Eliza. She tells that she has come to take lessons, and this shocks Higgins. Eliza want to talk in a more genteel way so that she can be employed in a flower shop instead of selling flowers on the street. So last day, it was Higgins himself who told that he will teach her to speak like a duchess. Then she tells that she can only pay a shilling per lesson. But then Pickering offers to pay for Eliza's lessons. So it's like a bet between Higgins and Pickering. So Higgins tells that she would turn this Cockney accent girl to speak like a duchess in 3 months, and now Colonel Pickering offers to pay for the lessons. Higgins anyway accepts the bet and he orders Mrs. Pierce to take the girl away, scrub her, clean her, and burn her clothes. And Eliza agrees to move into Higgins' home and then she goes upstairs for a bath. And, meanwhile, Higgins and Pickering are visited by Eliza's father, Doolittle. So Eliza's father had an intention of blackmailing Higgins because she was there without the permission of her father. And later, what her father did was he wanted £5 instead of Eliza. He was very poor and was really in need of money. So Higgins gives him the £5 and is immediately rid of him. And at the end of Act 2, we can see Doolittle exiting very quickly. Doolittle does not recognize her daughter because she has re-entered, cleaned up and dressed in a Japanese kimono. So there ends Act 2. Now Act 3. The setting is the flat of Mrs. Higgins, that is Henry Higgins' mother. So Henry invited Eliza in order for an early test of his progress with Eliza's speech. So at that time, Ainsford Hills, That means Clara, Freddie Ainsford Hill, and also their mother. They are also present there. They were Mrs. Higgins' guest. So these are the same people we saw at the first act. So Mrs. Higgins always had a complaint about her son, Henry Higgins, that he is so much uncomfortable with the guest. Whenever some friends of Mrs. Higgins came to her home, he is in a very awkward position, and the discussion turns to be very strange. So Eliza arrives, and while she speaks with perfect pronunciation and tone, she confuses the guest. They suddenly recognize that this girl was the same flower girl of that night, and everyone is amused with the correctness of her speech, and they were impressed with Eliza's narration of her aunt's death. The English was very much perfect, um, because the way she narrated all the details about the death. And there also occurs some confusion among the guests with many of her topics of conversation and peculiar turns of phrase. Then Higgins convinces that, including some of those phrases, including Elisa's famous exclamation, "not bloody likely," are latest trend in small talk. Then, after all the guests, including Eliza, have left, Mrs. Higgins points out that the girl is far from being ready to be presented in public. And Mrs. Higgins challenges Henry and Pickering regarding their plans, because she is shocked that they have given no thought of Eliza's well-being. For after the end of this experiment, what will she become? She will have no income, only the manners and habits that disqualify a fine lady from earning her own living. But Henry is not at all bothered about it. He says that the thing's done. Pickering is no more thoughtful than Higgins, and the two men exit. A following scene, the most important of the optional scenes, show wrought for the film version of Pygmalion and included in later editions of the play, takes place at an embassy party in London. Higgins is nervous that Nepomuk, a Hungarian interpreter and his former student, will discover, his experiment and expose Eliza as an aristocratic impostor, a cheat. So Nepomuk ironically accuses Eliza not of faking her social class but her nationality. He is convinced Eliza must be Hungarian and of noble blood, for she speaks English too perfectly, and only foreigners who have been taught to speak it well. Higgins is victorious, but finds no pleasure in having outwitted such foolish guess. There ends Act 3, Module 7, Basic Grammar Prepositions. Today I am discussing on preposition of place. If something is contained inside a box or a wide flat area, we use in a river, in my brain, in the sea, in a field, in London, in a bottle, in a cup, in a house, in a car. If something is on a line or a horizontal or vertical surface, we use on the page, on my face, on the floor, on the table, on a plate, on a bag, on his foot, on a bike, on a chair. Thank you.